Good evening. My name is Bill Glahn, and I have the privilege of being the chair of the board of New Hampshire Humanities. And tonight I have the somewhat unenviable task of introducing our keynote speaker in just a couple of minutes. Dr. Russell Muirhead grew up in New Hampshire, and it's our great fortune that he returned. And Russell's family has a direct connection to New Hampshire Humanities, as his mother was the chair of the board in the past. I have some personal connections to Russell as well. First, Russell's father and I were law partners. So I first met Russell 40 years ago when he was about 14. I can't say that I predicted his future on first meeting, but I did think he was a great kid. When Russell was about 18, he took our younger son, Ben, under his wing in a ski racing program. Both Ben and Russell are probably lucky to still be alive. I thought then that Russell was a great role model for Ben, assuming that they survived. Both did, and Russell's friendship hasn't been forgotten by Ben or by his parents. On a more formal note, it might be simple to introduce Russell simply by saying, local man makes very, very good. He holds a PhD and a BA from Harvard University, where he was a member of Phi Beta Kappa, and a BA from Balliol College at Oxford University, where he was a Rhodes Scholar. But perhaps most important to the group tonight, he's a graduate of Central High School, just a few blocks from here. Russell is the chair of the government department at Dartmouth College and the Robert Clements Associate Professor of Democracy and Politics at the college, and most recently, the interim head of the Rockefeller Center for Public Policy. He has taught political theory at the University of Texas at Austin, at Harvard University, and at Williams College, and teaches a popular course at Dartmouth entitled American Political Thought. Russell has written several books, the most recent of which is entitled A Lot of People Are Saying, The New Conspiracism and the Assault on Democracy. It is timely and frightening reading. Russell lives in Hanover with his wife Toni and his two 12-year-old twins. His talk tonight is entitled The Constitution and the Humanities. Both on behalf of New Hampshire Humanities and on a personal level, it is my privilege and honor to introduce Russell Muirhead as our keynote speaker.
Thank you, Bill. That was beautiful. And I think it's fair to say that no matter where I speak, from here on out, I'll probably never have an introduction I enjoy more than that one. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bill. And I really am just delighted and honored to be here this evening. Thank you for inviting me. This evening, I'd like to talk about the Constitution and the humanities, and to begin with a simple question. Can the Constitution work? I have a lot of students who love the Constitution, but who don't think it's working very well right now. Just look at Article 1. It's Article 1 because it's the most important part of the Constitution. And the first sentence of Article 1 of the Constitution says, all legislative power shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. Well, who today thinks the Congress of the United States is doing a good job? In a recent poll by Gallup, only 18% of Americans think Congress is doing a good job. I'd like to meet some of the people in that 18%, because I don't know any of them. I would have thought it might be zero. How can the Constitution be working well if Congress is so broken? Even if you think better of the Supreme Court or the President, the Constitution does not seem to be working. The Constitution teases us right at the beginning, before Article 1, in the preamble. It teases us with this phrase, we the people, this delicious, alluring invitation that says, you can rule. We can rule. The people can rule. Here, the people rule. That's what the Constitution whispers in our ears. But in recent years, the aspiration to popular rule has given way to more frustration than satisfaction. And that's partly because the Constitution sets a very high standard for what counts as we the people. And we the people haven't been able to satisfy that standard in my entire lifetime. The Constitution says you can rule, people, if you stand together in a large and lasting way. It's not enough just to win a Gallup poll in one slice of time. It's not enough to hit 50.1% on some particular day, November 2nd. Nope. As Mr. Bernier, who taught 8th grade civics at Hillside Junior High School, just up the street from here, taught me many years ago, the Constitution asks for more than Gallup polls ask for. We know what it asks for. To rule, the people have to win. 218 out of 435 congressional districts, each with about the same population. The people have to win 51 out of 100 Senate seats. Very different populations in states spread out across a great, great continent. And you have to win 270 out of 538 electors in the Electoral College. That's not easy, and that doesn't happen in one slice of time. The founders intentionally made it such that, for instance, the Senate wouldn't be up for re-election all at once, the way the House is, because they didn't want the Senate to reflect momentary popular passions. So they only let 1/3 of the Senate come up for election in any given 2-year window. It takes 6 years, as you know, to elect for the entire Senate to turn over. And that means that if you want to elect a majority, you have to stand together for a long time. If you want to do something big, the president has to get reelected. And that also requires standing together for a long period of time. So the constitutional majority, as opposed to a bare majority, is a much larger thing and a much more lasting thing. It's more diverse. It's more geographically dispersed than a mere numerical majority would likely ever be. That's why it's so hard to build the kind of coalition that can rule. The founders hoped and thought that that kind of coalition, the constitutional majority, would have certain qualities, that it would be more temperate, more reflective, more wise, and more just than a momentary, one slice in time, bare majority would likely be. They hoped the constitutional majority would be settled and rational rather than momentary and passionate, and therefore more fair, more just, more prudent. So here's the interesting thing. In my lifetime, no party has been able to assemble a constitutional majority and hold it together for any real period of time. It hasn't been able to happen. Each time a party does this, it succeeds for about 2 years. At the outer limit, in my lifetime, 4 years. Take the last national election, 2016, the Republicans had the House, the Senate, the presidency, 2 years. Lose it by 2018. Prior to that, it was 2008 with the victory of Barack Obama. The Democrats controlled House, Senate, presidency, 2 years. By 2010, it was all over. Prior to that, it was, I think, 2002 with George W. Bush. The Republicans had a majority. They held it together for about 4 years. Lost it as the war in Iraq went south in 2006. Prior to that, 1992, Bill Clinton elected majority, Democratic majorities in the House, the Senate, the presidency, 2 years. 94, Newt Gingrich, the Republicans win the Congress, it's all over. Prior to that, Jimmy Carter, 1976. That's my lifetime. Every once in a while, party does it for 4 years, more often in 2 years, and then they blow it. And listen, I mean, we're approaching election. Passions are heated. If you identify with a party, you think everything will be good if your party wins. But just remember, neither party has been able to succeed at making the Constitution work in my lifetime. That task, making the Constitution work, I think it's going to be the task of a new generation to make the Constitution work for a new age. And my worry is that today's generation is going to be hobbled by the kinds of divisions that make it very, very difficult to live together politically. My worry is that we're dividing ourselves more deeply, and we're losing our ability to understand each other, to see the other side in the political fray as legitimate, as a good faith player in the democratic game, that we're losing our ability to make peaceful politics with each other, that we're losing our ability to disagree with each other in a peaceful, constructive way, that ultimately we're losing our ability to see people we disagree with as opponents rather than as existential foes. In my own recent work, in that book Bill so kindly mentioned, a lot of people are saying, my co-author, Nancy Rosenblum, and I have charted the way that conspiracy talk in American politics has threatened to create epistemic tribes or rival groups that disagree about what it means to know something. The movement we look at the movement from conspiracy theory to conspiracy without the theory, from conspiracy theories that appealed to arguments and evidence. They might have been wrong, they might have been far-fetched, but they at least made the effort to appeal to evidence that everybody could see, to a shared world of facts. We've moved from that to conspiracy without the theory, which relies on just bare assertion and depends on partisan passions for its ascent. And a great example of that from the last election would be, say, Pizzagate, which is the narrative that says Hillary Clinton and her campaign chairman were conducting a child sex trafficking ring out of the basement of a pizzeria roughly in Washington, D.C. That didn't explain any event, like, say, JFK's assassination. It didn't appeal to any facts. It invented facts, like the basement of the pizzeria. There was a young man who showed up at that very pizzeria armed with an assault rifle to liberate the children who were purportedly being held. And he discovered that there was no basement. The pizzeria was on a slab. The whole thing, of course, was fiction. And to the extent somebody believed it, it really had to do with the way it appealed to their partisan passions, not to the way it made sense of events in the world that are kind of hard to understand. My worry when I look at something like that and the way in which that kind of thing has metastasized in our political life, my worry is that not only that it makes it harder for us to agree with each other, that's always hard. My worry is that it makes it hard for us to disagree with each other. Because to disagree with each other, we have to understand each other. An intelligible disagreement appeals to a world that we share. It says it would be wrong to raise taxes, or it would be right to raise taxes, or it would be wrong to fund this, or it would be right to start that. And this is what will happen if we do. And without that, without a disagreement that appeals to a world that we share, facts, evidence, of senses, of sense experience, argument just becomes sound and fury, signifying nothing. And when argument becomes that, it will become impossible to make politics together, to live together peacefully and constructively and cooperatively with people with whom we disagree. As I've said, I think that finding our way out, making the Constitution work, is the task of the new generation. I also think that essential to that task are the humanities, and in particular, the kind of empathy that the humanities and only the humanities can call out and nourish in us. What I'm talking about is an ability to see each other, to understand each other, and to see the other side even when we can't agree, especially when we can't agree with the other side. This is what the humanities are about. Every fall at Dartmouth, I have to describe what the humanities are about to incoming students who come in and look at a course catalog with 1,750 courses and try to make sense of it all. And we've divided for them that whole curriculum into three big groups: the humanities, the social sciences, the natural sciences. And there's no reason to think, and students don't know what those mean. So I have to explain. The humanities are departments like philosophy and English and the arts, and they get it. But beyond that, beyond the mere departments or activities that make up the humanities are what they are because of what they do. And what the humanities do is allow us to understand ourselves, allow us to feel like we exist and to know what it means to exist. The humanities are the things we do when we interpret ourselves, when we build a mirror in which we can see ourselves more clearly. We build that mirror when we tell stories. We build that mirror when we write and sing songs. We build that mirror when we paint paintings. That is the world. We create a world in which we can see ourselves and understand what it is to exist. And it turns out, it might not have turned out this way, but it turns out, we've learned from experience that when we do that, when we interpret ourselves, when we build a mirror in which we can see ourselves, what we discover is not that human beings are essentially divided into endemically different categories, opposed categories. What we find out is just the reverse, that actually we're connected to each other. Through all of our difference, across all of our diversity, there's something there we share. And that's why we use this word, the humanities, that we discover our oneness, our humanness. We don't discover that we're just Germans or that we're of this race or that ethnicity or that. We discover our humanness. Along with understanding our particularity, we discover our commonality. That's what the humanities do. And that's why they're the key to rediscovering the kind of commonality, the kind of unity that makes it possible to disagree, that makes it possible to live together in a state of disagreement, that makes it possible to have a politics. Human beings have to have a politics because we don't cooperate with each other automatically and naturally like ants or bees or other social creatures. For us to cooperate with each other, for us to flourish together, we have to artificially create a way of being together. And we have to cultivate in ourselves the kinds of feelings and outlooks that allow us to live together, in spite of the fact that we'll always disagree. And the humanities are the key to those attitudes, to those outlooks, to those feelings, to those cognitive understandings, to that empathy that makes constitutional democracy possible, that makes it possible, makes it reasonable to believe in the promise of the Constitution, that makes it possible to think that here the people might rule. Recent work in psychology, a social science, shows that the humanities do what we knew they do, which is they cultivate empathy. Recent work shows that reading fiction actually increases empathy. This is now scientifically proven, but we didn't need that science to know it. That's why we've assigned had English classes, literature classes in schools for students all of these years, because we know what it does. And what it does is more important right now than it's ever been. It's more vital to making our Constitution work than it's ever been. This is the key. The humanities are the key to finding our way out of our current predicament. They are the key to making our Constitution work. They're the key to becoming we the people. Thank you very much.